And now we're asking, should the Prime Minister get a pay rise? The number's 0207 862 2222, and I'm taking your calls on this right away. It's been reported that Sir Keir Starmer's top advisor, Sue Gray, we've all heard about her, a great deal about her, is on a salary of £170,000 a year. That is around £3,000 more than the Prime Minister himself is paid. According to the BBC, the decision over Sue Gray's pay came after Starmer agreed to reband the salaries for special advisors. It claims her salary is not at the top of the new highest band, so there is potential for her to earn even more still than Keir Starmer does. But is that fair? Surely the Prime Minister should be the top earner at number 10. Or maybe you think he simply doesn't need the money. It's his staff and advisors who do. Esther, she's earning £3,000 a year more than the Prime Minister. She's an advisor, lifelong civil servant. She's got a fabulous-looking pension pot with, I think, 1.8 million quid in it. Sounds lovely. Is it right? Is it a good look? Does it make any sense that she earns more than the PM?
I'm not really concerned with how much SPADs get paid, just because they're appointed. It's a completely different. They're accountable to the people who appoint them. I do think, though, that our politicians are paid not enough in this country, particularly the Prime Minister. So the Singaporean Prime Minister, just for context, earns £1.2 million a year. In Hong Kong, the chief executive earns £500,000 or £430,000. We have to really choose what kind of incentive we want to offer our politicians. These people are basically doing some of the most important jobs in the country. They decide our taxes, they decide how public services get funded. You know, everything that they do impacts our lives in one way or another. And I think this idea that, you know, we should keep politicians on a certain pay or on a lower pay because many people don't earn that much, so it's kind of a bad look. I don't agree with that at all. We see the scandal with Keir Starmer accepting over £100,000 worth of gifts from lobbyists and from different interest groups. And the question people should be asking is, what did he accept or what did he agree to do in exchange for these gifts? There's no such thing as free anything, right? He is accepting these favours and these gifts in exchange for something. And you have to think, where should his incentive lie? His incentive should lie in doing a good job for the public.
Yeah, but you might say that's got nothing to do with money, doing a good job for the public.
It does have something to do with money.
Let me give some context.
It does have something to do with money.
MPs at the moment get paid £91,346 a year plus expenses. And of course, an additional salary is paid for ministerial and other positions of that kind. So 91,000. What do you think about this? Do you think that, that Keir Starmer should earn more than Sue Gray because it seems so strange?
It's true that Keir Starmer has taken a staggering amount of freebies since he became the leader of the Labour Party. I don't think it's a scandal because apart from the late declaring of the money that went to his wife's clothing, which I think was an innocent mistake and has been rectified, there's no suggestion of wrongdoing. And so I wouldn't use the word scandal. I find it a poor look, particularly for a Labour Prime Minister who is introducing means testing to pensioners' winter fuel allowance.
And particularly a Labour Prime Minister who so openly condemned the previous regime of Boris Johnson for the free wallpaper and the donations and all of that. And really took the high moral tone on it.
Wants to clean up politics. By the way, as I say, this isn't a scandal, but I think the optics are very poor.
All right, but let's move on from the scandal to the salary.
So should he get more money than he's paid at the moment? I don't think he should, because I think there should be some link of reality between those who serve us, and he is a public servant, he is there to serve the public, and the rest of us.
But when you say some link of reality, so he's on...
Well, it's clearly a lot more than the average wage already.
£166,000 a year. The average salary is £34,000. So people will think he's on stratospheric monopoly money anyway.
But let's not exacerbate it, because you talked about the Prime Minister of Singapore is on something like in excess of £1 million. The idea of our Prime Minister, who I keep saying is a public servant, I hope our politicians go into politics not to make money. Of course, they've got to be paid, but not to make money, but to make the country a better place, whatever their politics. So the idea of him being paid £1 million plus seems to me to be ludicrous.
OK, I have a question for both of you. If you were about to have eye surgery and you found out that your eye surgeon was on £5 an hour, would you feel comfortable being there?
That's just not a reasonable analogy.
But hold on, no. The reason why I point that out is the market decides how much someone gets paid, and it's based on your skills, how scarce they are, and the impact of what you're doing and what people are willing to pay you for. There's a reason why doctors aren't paid and shouldn't be paid £5 an hour because they're too highly skilled for that. The argument that I'm making is the Prime Minister has the most important job in the country. Instead of fixating on how much he's paid, you must think what other influences could possibly impact the job that he will do. Well, guess what? It's other people like the Lord Allies that have £500,000 to donate to the Labour Party. If you're upset about the fact that he's taking all these freebies, you have to ask what he's agreeing to in exchange for these freebies.
Except that everybody knows how much it costs to buy a dress that's perfectly acceptable to wear for a public occasion. You don't need to be subsidised. If you're earning £166,000 a year and your wife's earning £50,000 working in the NHS, you can afford to go to any viable high street shop and buy a perfectly acceptable dress. You're not naked because you're too poor to buy clothes. Matt in Lincolnshire. Hi, Matt. Thanks for ringing.
Hi, Vanessa. How are you?
I'm all right, thanks. So he's on £3,000 less than Sue Gray, who's his advisor. Does that sit right with you, or is that all wrong?
I think it's all wrong, to be honest. But I think the point is, with the being the Prime Minister, it's a bit like winning the lottery because the money's made when you're not the Prime Minister.
Yep.
All these politicians, you'll do your 4 years or your 5 years, and then once you're out of politics, you're on 2 million, 3 million quid a year. Look at like Tony Blair. Look at the amount of money that he's made.
Yes.
And I was just looking actually, like Nick Clegg. You think Nick Clegg was only the deputy Prime Minister? They reported that his salary on Facebook was $500,000 a year, and in 2018 he bought a house for £7 million. So what I'm saying is, it's just like getting a job as the Prime Minister. It's like, I'll do it for a few years and then get a job for a bank or an oil company or something like that, part-time, and you're going to be on millions.
But Matt, that's very cynical. I mean, just to get you're probably right on Boris Johnson. I'm not a Boris Johnson fan, but if you look at someone, and indeed David Cameron, I think, has made a huge amount of money. Perhaps Nick Clegg was, he's done a sort of normal-ish but very, very well-paid job. I'm not sure I have a problem with that. It's more the after-dinner speaking where you're trading off having been the Prime Minister. But look at Gordon Brown. I think whether you thought he was a good Prime Minister or not, don't we have to give him some credit? Because I really don't think he's gone down that route. He still really cares, it seems to me, about public service.
The thing is with Gordon Brown, though, he was useless, wasn't he? He was a bad chancellor. He sold up all the gold cheap.
Well, he saved the world, didn't he? He saved the world from financial meltdown by helping us get out of the financial crisis. But anyway, I said, even if, whatever you think of him as a Prime Minister, after leaving office, I think he's conducted himself with dignity, hasn't he?
But it's interesting, isn't it, Matt? Because Matt here, rather than Matt on the phone, because you're kind of implying that the ex-Prime Ministers get extra points for not cashing in.
Well, I'm not a fan of a Prime Minister trading off the fact that they were Prime Minister and going and making hundreds and hundreds of thousands of pounds on the after.
But it's just a fact. They just were Prime Minister, and therefore, I mean, even Theresa May gets paid an absolute fortune.
Well, yeah, but I think the bigger
which to me is absolutely astounding because you think they pay her to be quiet, but they don't.
I don't think she got a fortune when I interviewed her on stage at a synagogue earlier this year. She was very impressive on stage, to be fair to her. Yeah.
But I think the point Matt is making is, Matt on the phone, is that you shouldn't actually go into being a politician in public service and becoming a Prime Minister to cash in later on. The incentive should be wanting to do a good job as Prime Minister. And I always make the point that politicians will get paid by someone. If it's not the public, it's the lobbyists and interest groups. And is that in the public's interest? No. You have US congressmen, people like Joe Biden and all of these people that are on like sort of just under $200,000 a year, and yet they're multi-millionaires in the tens of millions. And no one is questioning how that came about. No one is questioning, the kinds of people, the kinds of lobbyists and the groups that are paying them. It's completely ludicrous to me that this idea that politicians get favours and money and stuff from other sources, and no one is thinking, what are they trading in exchange for that? Like, no one asked that.
Everyone's thinking about it. It's been the front page story on every paper for weeks. No, but you're not the only person who's questioned it. No, everyone's thinking, if you're given clothes, if you're given
But the point is,
tickets, why are you giving them?
The public should pay politicians much better than they do. They shouldn't be allowed second jobs.
Why should Keir Starmer need to go to a Taylor Swift concert, though? Why should we pay him to go to a Taylor Swift concert?
Politicians shouldn't be allowed second jobs. They shouldn't be allowed any sort of lobbyist money or any sort of income outside of the public purse. And this is why I say they should be paid a lot more, because I don't want them to have sort of interest from people that are not the public. That's the point I'm making.
But how much money do you think is the right amount of money? So
I think
earning 170,000.
I think MP should be on somewhere around $500,000, and I think the Prime Minister should be under $2 million. Yes.
You think MP should be on £500,000 pounds a year?
And then we can attract better talent.
When the average salary is 34,000.
I find that extraordinary, Esther.
The UK is a low-wage economy. The argument shouldn't be because I make less, so should you. The argument should be we should be having a dynamic economy where people can make more. I want the average person to make more. I don't want the average person to be on £34,000 a year.
Won't be affordable because you're paying politicians
I just want to come back on that, if I may.
Let's take a call and see what's going on the phones. Sarah's on the line in Surrey. Sarah, hello. Thanks for calling. Should Keir Starmer be paid more money?
No, is the answer. Keir Starmer poached Sue Gray when she was a specialist advisor to Boris Johnson.
Yes.
So he obviously saw that she had skills involved there.
Yeah.
My second point is, as a taxpayer, I would like to understand what these skills are, because she's 2 seats away from Keir Starmer at a meeting with Joe Biden.
Yes.
But all we know is she is a specialist advisor. And thirdly, he's voted for specialist advisors to be given a certain salary. So why should we up his salary if he thinks he's got someone who is an advisor, not a member of the government, but an advisor? I'd like to know what skills they actually have, because they're very, very high profile.
Well, she's a very senior civil servant. She's a career civil servant.
Well, she's not a civil servant now.
But she's very
experienced. She was a civil servant.
She's been kind of in the inner circle for so many years.
She was, of course, leading that investigation into Boris Johnson, which why I thought at the time it was a mistake by Keir Starmer then to bring her in as a political appointee, as a special advisor, because for me that was compromising the look of independence of our civil service. By the way, Vanessa, if you want to sort out these freebies, which you're concerned about and I'm concerned about, the way to do that is to say, OK, well, politicians shouldn't be getting freebies, whether they declare them or not to give them £500,000 to be our local representative, not to give them £2 million to be our Prime Minister. Politics isn't a money-making exercise. They are there to serve us. Of course, they've got to be paid reasonably so that they can live their lives. But the idea that it's going to be a money-making exercise, to me, is offensive.
That's extremely naive.
There's that excellent phrase, cut your coat according to your cloth. So you wear the clothes you can afford to wear. And if you can't afford to wear them, you don't wear them. It's pretty simple. Let's talk to Anne in Dorset. Hello, Anne.
Oh, hello, Vanessa.
Hi. So should the Prime Minister get more money than he already does, Anne?
Absolutely not.
No.
Simply because, in view of the present situation with the pensioners and the winter fuel allowance, he's taking the money off them because of the reason they've given over the deficit and the black hole.
Yeah.
Now, if they've got a black hole and they can't afford to pay the winter fuel allowance, how can they afford to give themselves a wage rise?
OK, excellent point. And thank you so much for ringing. Thanks for all the calls on that subject. Let's move on now.